friends. Welcome to Season 6, Episode 242 of School Librarians United. I'm your host, Amy Herman. This podcast is dedicated to the issues and challenges school librarians face every day. As a school librarian in my 17th year, I knew I wanted a podcast which addressed the nuts and bolts of running a successful library program. I don't claim to have the answers, but I hope that this is a platform to share resources and exchange ideas. Now is a perfect time to mention that all the ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast by myself, my interview guests, and listeners who reach out to the podcast are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. When incorporating research, I always make sure to cite my sources. So whether you are a novice or a veteran school librarian, this podcast has something for you. I'd like to extend a very special welcome this week to Brandy and Sibel in California, Shelley in Florida, Kristen in Hawaii, Michelle in Kansas, Amber in Mississippi, Sarah and Brittany in Missouri, Stephanie in New Hampshire, Faith and Stephanie in North Carolina. I welcome you and all listeners to reach out with your feedback and episode suggestions. You can reach me either on Facebook. On X, formerly known as Twitter, my handle is @LMS_United, or the email address schoollibrariansunited@gmail.com. If you include your mailing address, I'll be sure to send you a podcast sticker. Be sure to listen to episode 224. I announce a new sponsorship with Literati Book Fairs. And now is a chance to hear from a Literati Book Fair veteran, Amanda. Amanda Chacon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Amy. Glad to be back.
Friends, you'll recognize Amanda's voice. She has been a guest on the show, and she's done several literati promotions. You are a Literati Book Fair veteran. And given the topic of today's conversation, I would love to hear how you are using social media to promote your upcoming Literati Book Fair.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to talk about this. I do have a Literati Book Fair coming up in October, and they have a program called Open Book. When you log into it, it's like a dashboard, and they have all kinds of goodies in there for you. For instance, promoting your book fair. They have graphics, they have handouts, videos. They even have a game this year for the kids to play because the theme is be a detective. And so they have to detect certain things. So what I do is I log in, I grab the graphics, I adjust them to my school because they have it to where you do that. And then I've created a Google site where I have the information for the parents. I have the Literati link to their online book fair. I have the link to the online book fair catalog because sometimes when you give it to the kid, it doesn't quite make it home. And then I have a link to the Literati e-gift card, which is where parents load it on as a cashless option. So I make it like super clear and easy. And what I love this time around, and I think last year as well, is that Literati has started offering Spanish options. And that's really important for dual language schools and bilingual schools like myself. So I was so excited and thankful for that so that I didn't have to manually go and translate things. It's already done for me. And that includes the graphics and the letters to send home.
So let me ask, when you put out your information about the Literati Book Fair using social media, which avenues, which platforms have you found reach your largest audience?
Well, I use everything I possibly can. So I start with Facebook. A lot of our parents are still on Facebook. So I use not just my personal Facebook, but also the school Facebook. I use the school's Instagram account and my personal Instagram account. I use the school's Twitter account and my personal Twitter account. And then this year, I really started getting into TikTok. The kids follow me on TikTok, so it's all, school appropriate. But I'm going to promote the book fair and do a book fair walkthrough and post it on TikTok. So that's going to be new this year, hot off the press.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I hope you have a fantastic Literati Book Fair. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Be sure to tune in to learn all about Literati and their generous offer. Librarians who book their very first Literati Book Fair for this upcoming school year and mention the code UNITED when booking may qualify to receive a $500 gift card from Titlewave. Visit the link in today's show notes and call the Literati team today to see if you qualify. And now a word from our sponsor, Capstone. Capstone is an innovative publisher and education technology provider of children's content for school libraries, classrooms, and at-home learning. Home of the award-winning PebbleGo research database, Capstone has a passion for creating inspired learning and intellectual curiosity in children, and I'm so excited to be working with them. I'm grateful to Capstone for their continued commitment to support the podcast in Season 6. They are offering listeners of School Librarians United a very special discount. Visit shop.capstonepub.com and use the code UNITED to get $20 off an order of $100 or more for both print and Capstone interactive ebooks. That's code UNITED for $20 off an order of $100 or more for both print and ebooks on shop.capstonepub.com. And now for today's episode, our virtual media presence and my conversation with Amanda Chacon. Amanda Chacon, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Amy, for having me back.
Friends, the last time Amanda joined us was in January, episode 207, STEM Librarian, and I encourage you, if you haven't listened to this show, please make sure you take a look at the link in the show notes. Amanda, would you give us an idea? What kind of STEM program are you excited to offer in your library this school year?
Okay, so I did start a Lego Leaders Club in the spring, and the link to that website where I have pictures and my Google Slides and all of my curriculum is in the show notes. And then I'm about to start back up with my all-girls STEM club called STEM Gems, where we do no-tech, low-tech, high-tech STEM challenges in a safe and supportive environment.
Friends, it is always a little intimidating, and we have a little bit of concern whenever we're starting a new program or a club. But knowing that other school librarians have gone down that path and have had great success, you're going to want to make sure that you include Amanda in your virtual PLN, because every time Amanda shares on social media, I learn more and more about all the amazing things that you're doing. And I imagine, that sort of ties in with today's conversation, because your families are learning about the amazing things you're doing in your school. Your administrators, including your superintendent, I'm sure, is probably aware of the things that are going on in your library, especially because you make those things known on social media. So I'm so grateful to everything that you have done, because it makes it easier to learn about what you're doing, because you give us that visual on social media. So let's go ahead. I want to sort of talk about this MVP award, but I first of all, congratulations. You were recently awarded the Texas Library Association's MVP, the Media Virtual Presence Award. I wanted to also take this opportunity to congratulate two honorees who are two former guests on this show. Listeners will remember Amanda Hunt and Deb Zeman. And friends, I've included their links in the show notes to their episodes. They're fantastic, and I love learning from them as well. Because, again, when you share on social media, I feel like we have a better sense of what we do.
Thank you so much. I will say I was completely floored that I won. I was going through a period, and I'm sure a lot of librarians have done this too, where I was feeling just severe imposter syndrome. Am I doing the right thing? Am I making an impact? And, I just kept doing what I was doing. And then this happened, and it was like a sign from the universe that, you're doing a good job, and just keep going, keep at it. And eventually somebody's going to notice. And I think that was a lesson for me as well.
Well, and I can't help but think, good for Texas for recognizing this is a way for us to make sure that we raise that profile of what school librarians do. There's no doubt in anybody's mind about all the value that you bring to your school community when you are as transparent as you are, because of the things that you share on social media.
Right. And it's all about the advocacy and being completely open about what's going on in your library, because otherwise nobody knows.
Amanda, for listeners who haven't heard your first episode, would you give us some context? Obviously you're in Texas, but give us a better appreciation of your school, the grades that you support, and a little bit about your year you've already started.
Yes, I have. It's been a month, actually. So I'm currently in an elementary school in Houston, Texas. It is a Title I school. We serve grades 1 through 5, and it is a bilingual campus, English-Spanish. I currently have I call it a responsive schedule. I saw that somewhere, and I thought it fitted me really well. It fit me really well that I have a mix of classes based on the needs of the teachers and the students. So I have, some fixed classes. I have some open checkout times. I have extra classes for my storybook STEM, if a teacher wants to bring them in for extra co-teaching lessons and things like that. And then I also have some clubs, which I already talked about, STEM Gyms. That's super exciting. And then I have a Library Genius Hour as well.
Whoa, wait. And, the Library Genius Hour, is that held during the day, or is that after school?
Yes. So most schools have some kind of PLC, professional learning community, for the teachers. So it's like an extra time that we get the kids. And instead of just, staring at each other, we decided, okay, let's do something interesting and fun with it. And so the school started Genius Hour. And I'm a part of that rotation. And the kids get to choose which area they want to go to, art, music, PE, library, computer. And we all have different things that we offer. So for me, I've offered Lego leaders. I've offered, I forget what I call it, but we did projects with the local museum, a partnership with the local museum. We did some projects. It's called pollinator projects. And then I've just done simple makerspace stations. If I want to keep it simple that semester, I will.
So these, you were saying semester, how long do these units of exploration last? Because I know you'll have PLC all year long. Do kids have an opportunity to rotate which types of PLC they attend?
Yes. So they get to choose at the beginning of the year and then after we come back from winter break. So they get 2 opportunities to try something. So if they don't like library, which hasn't happened, but if they don't, they would, try to switch it out.
And how often is PLC?
PLC is every week. So if you're a 5th grade teacher, you have it every Thursday, rain or shine.
That's fantastic. But, again, sort of to mix up the day, mix up the, and I know that kids look forward to that because any type of, break in the schedule is really something sort of fun to put on their own little calendars. That's exciting. So I want to acknowledge something that's going to date me terribly. And we're talking about this media virtual presence that we are now being encouraged to have. But once upon a time, educators were admonished for having phones out during class time. And forgive me, but for those of us who started teaching in 1992, there was no such thing as having phones having phones out while we were teaching. So it was clearly not a problem when I started my career. But, we were not only admonished from having the phones out, we were not supposed to have them visible to the students. There was a time when teachers had to ask permission from our administrators. Could we do this? Because it was seen as, sort of edgy and, we're sort of risk takers here. And now, clearly this award demonstrates that Texas and Texas librarians are being encouraged to embrace social media as a way to raise the profile of what we do every day.
That's exactly what it is. It's been this culture shift. Even when I started as a librarian 14 years ago, it was BlackBerry time. But, I've seen it just grow and grow and also administrators have had a large part in this as well, because they like to show off what's going on in their school. The library is always a part of that. It's a huge part of that. And so administrators have encouraged me, and not just one, but many, to, post that. And so that's what kind of gets the ball rolling. And so there's this culture shift among librarians and teachers to have more transparency about what's happening in the school to the families and the community. So it's not this huge secret about what my kid is doing every day. And with that comes a more positive relationship with the families and with the community as well.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned principal because I did receive a small grant my first year at my high school. And you better believe my principal was in that picture, and that got shared out on social media. Now, did my principal do anything to get that grant? No, signed the application. Yes, that is it. But you better believe when we look good and we make our programs look good, by extension, they look good. And, we're only making their jobs easier, right? Because they then have to be able to point to the superintendent, the Board of Education, see, we have, leaders in our school every day, and here we go. And you're sort of making their job easier by advertising all the great things that happen in your space.
That's exactly what it is.
I'm guessing that this particular award may eventually have to be updated or evolve because of the changing landscape of social media platforms. In the description, which, friends, I've included in our show notes, it references Twitter. It also references Pinterest, which, forgive me, but I've never thought of Pinterest as a social media tool. I guess it is, but it doesn't, to me, seem like one that we would necessarily use. So I'm kind of thinking about that. But, there's no mention of TikTok, which I do feel will probably be part of the next, evolution of this award. And I love that there's an expectation that the winner of this award would have a presence across multiple platforms. It's not just like, you can't just be a superstar on one platform. You need to sort of cross and reach as wide an audience as possible. And you only can do that if you are posting in several locations.
Right, that's exactly true. So if you actually go to I know Amy's included the description and the link to the award itself, but if you go to the nomination form, that's more updated. So it does mention Snapchat, TikTok, and things of that nature. So there just maybe needs to be a connection there between the two. But yes, it does ask for that.
So can you put that, we're going to put that link as well into the show notes. Okay, excellent. I'm hoping that your school and your district celebrated this award, which you received. And friends, this was absolutely adorable. A few minutes ago, I got to meet Ethan. And Ethan is Amanda's biggest cheerleader because your son wanted to be on the show. And you'll see him in a picture that we're going to post on social media. What a cutie. Recognizing that this is something he's very proud of you. Are you aware of the social media presence of, say, your building administrators or fellow teachers in your building? Because I suspect that maybe I'm just speculating here, wildly speculating, but I don't know just how dire it is that traditional classroom teachers post, because in many cases, their jobs are not considered as optional as ours. You're in Texas, I'm in Michigan. More than half of our libraries are actually not staffed by school librarians, but rather somebody who is a tech or some sort of clerk, a media clerk.
Yes, I am aware of all of that. So in Texas, it is a little different. I do feel like there is a strong presence, thanks in large part to TLA, Texas Library Association. There's a lot of advocacy going on for Texas libraries and Texas librarians. And just to give you an example, I'm sure it made national news about Houston ISD has a new superintendent, and he took away some libraries in the schools and turned them into detention centers. And there were protests, there were parents coming out and advocating for the role of libraries. And it was extremely heartwarming to see that, not just parents, but also kids too, saying, this is my safe place. This is where I love to go. And so there is a lot of, and I think in large part to just the encouragement, from things like TLA that, hey, you are valuable and we're here to help you be valued and to support you on your journey. And I found just through the years that, if I connect with them on social media, that they are very responsive. So we have the president, Brooke King, She lives near me, actually, but she's extremely responsive to any kind of questions I may have, or just to vent. And I think that's just a lovely thing to have. And just the state of Texas, but also, nationally and globally, being able to connect with other librarians. But bringing it back to your question, I am aware of social media in the school. I am actually in charge of all of our social media accounts for the school. And at first, you might think that is just more responsibility, but I see it as an opportunity. I always get to post, so I'm always putting library pictures in there. So even if families or other district administrators do not follow my personal social media accounts, they follow the school, right? So they're going to see, oh, that's going on in the library. That's amazing. So I try to see it as an opportunity and just kind of always slip in some amazing things about the library in there as well. I do know I like personally seeing teachers post pictures about what's going on in the traditional classroom as well. And that I also kind of use as a tool to kind of guide what I do in the library. Like, oh my gosh, they are doing, a teacher at my school is teaching blocks of 10 bases. I'm not a super math person. Hopefully, you know what I mean. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a great opportunity for me to help support that teacher in what they are teaching with some books, I have some websites I'm going to send them for some games and so on.
You're being sneaky. When I'm standing at the laminator and I'm feeding stuff into the laminating machine, and I'm like, oh, this is what they're doing. Oh, that and all of a sudden you can take what you learn, whether you're running off some emergency copies for somebody, or for me it's laminating. I was like, oh, now I have a better idea of what you're doing in your classroom. A couple things I wanted to mention. First of all, Texas. You also have the tall Texan. And my understanding isn't there, as part of achieving that tall Texan status, isn't there an expectation that you're also going to have a social media presence?
Yes. So Tall Texans is a leadership program for librarians in Texas. And it does encourage whomever's in the program to kind of step up into a leadership role within the state, within the district, and within the school. And it kind of coaches you through, not everyone is a natural leader. I'm certainly not, right? And so it kind of coaches you into ways that you can tap into your own strengths and use that to drive your leadership role and advocate for libraries and library programming.
You mentioned a couple more things I want to follow up on. First of all, we think about social media as our outward, sort of expression of what we do, what we value, the things that are important to us. But there is a back channel there. There is a way that when we start following one another on social media, we have an automatic and easy way to connect our virtual PLN. My virtual PLN is so vitally important to me. To keep me going, to keep this podcast going. But I have a virtual PLN because I initially was following people on social media. And then it invites so now I can, and you do so in a way that's not creepy. It's sort of like, wow, everything you post is amazing. I would love to learn more about it. But you said yourself, you're connecting with the state, you're connecting with state leadership because of social media. And you can then, that whole DM, I'm going to DM on either Facebook or, on formerly known as Twitter. For me, it's too easy. It's like, I feel like I have a good sense of what you're doing in your space. And then I'm going to reach out and say, hey, and then that's where we start to go with the episodes and so forth like that. One more thing. I wanted to also say, you talked about being in charge of your school's social media. And I know that we oftentimes are the person who gets dumped on, and librarians sort of the catch-all. There's a fantastic picture out there on social media of a school librarian wearing a tall stack of hats and sort of doing, these are all the hats that I wear. And I got to tell you, if your building comes to you and says, we need you to be in charge of the school's social media, why wouldn't you say yes? I mean, most of us are voluntold, most of us are like, we highly recommend you take this opportunity. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. We're not taking no for an answer. But what an invitation, because now you can slip in all those library programs and promote all the things you're doing under the guise of, oh, I'm just doing the social media for the school. That's all. I am looking at the MVP criteria, and I think that some of these things would be helpful because even though, while a lot of our listeners live in Texas, a lot of them do, there are some of us who did not live in Texas. But I think it does create a sort of a guideline by which we should think about the kind of impact we can have. First of all, you distinguish that you have a personal social media presence and a school social media presence. And I think that's vitally important that we do distinguish there are personal feeds of ours, and then we also have our school feeds.
So I started my Twitter I don't know what you call it now, my X account, 13 years ago during grad school. And obviously it started with library-related things. But I do post some personal things on there as well, just kind of activities that I'm doing in my own life, just to show just the balance of myself as a person. And that's okay, as long as it's not, I think, too much. But if you want to have a separate personal account and a library account, go for it, for sure. And make sure you lock down your personal accounts as well. Keep them private. For Instagram, that was created solely for the library. And the same thing for the TikTok as well. And I'm still kind of learning TikTok. When we all start this, it's kind of like, how do I post? What do I post? Do I need to post? And it's just a matter of seeing what else is out there, for me anyway, seeing what else is out there and kind of getting inspired by other people. And then that makes me more comfortable in posting. And then I post and then I get some likes, just a few little likes, and I'm all excited about it. So, I think I do show just kind of a balance of it all. But if you do look at my Twitter account, you will see I do post some, this is what I did this weekend sometimes.
Another criteria of the MVP award is the timeliness of your posts. And the idea is that this is something that you do consistently throughout the year and not just in the weeks leading up to the decision of this award. And it was interesting because I love this sentence, quote, "The posting should be a regular part of the librarian's job," end quote. Like, what more do you need? This is like tacit permission to say, listen, in order to do a good job and have the kind of support that you should in your space, this should be a part of your job.
And I think that circles back to the whole advocacy issue with librarians that, within the job inherently is a role of the advocate for the library. And it's becoming more and more important. And, as the years go on, you can't just be an island among yourself in the library. You're going to have to learn how to advocate. And social media, I think, makes that so much easier and accessible as well.
Another thing I found really fascinating also is this component of social interaction. The expectation that people on social media, this isn't like looking at a photo gallery. This isn't like a newsletter that goes out once a week to your families, and it goes one way. Social media has this interactive component to it, and this expectation that, most people won't respond. But when we put things out there, we do so with the awareness that people will sometimes engage with us and the posts that we share on social media. And I think that will not only shape what we share, but the way in which we, present ourselves, out there. I'm waving, friends. I'm out there. With the way we present ourselves out there, we recognize that it is public and people can respond and chime in and engage with you as the person who authored that post.
And I think it's really important to, engage back with whomever's asking you things. Like if they ask you a question, respond. I get a lot of questions. I get a lot of DMs and I always respond. I always check that. And it kind of reminds me of something. If you know Wendy Prey, she is amazing. And she is just a leadership inspiration for me. And so she taught me about something, and I think it's really great, that we are not a circle. Librarians are not a circle where we're closed and we just speak to only certain people on social media, but we are a horseshoe, and that the horseshoe can grow in length, right? But it's still open to others to join. And that, I think, really solidifies the idea of a librarian PLN, that we all see each other, we all hear each other, but we're going to grow and we're going to get larger and larger, and we're not going to close it off. It's always open.
I love that. I think that's amazing. I mean, this idea that we're not done, we're never done making friends and having these important people in our lives. And I will say, as somebody who is now, recognizing I started teaching 31 years ago, I'm not done. I'm nowhere near done. And we have to find ourselves open to new things, because if you are good at what you do and you stick at this long enough, you are going to need to be able to grow. And in order to grow, we have to be open to the idea of new people and new ideas all the time. I think that's so incredible. I think when we have a social media presence and if we have a blog and something like that, there was a time when we could just create a website and sort of forget about it for a while. And then but when you recognize that these are, sort of available to the public and they're able to respond and comment on it, and hopefully you have a way to recognize when somebody does chime in and reaches out to you on social media. We need to be responsive to the questions that people have, and it also forces us to maintain our social media. And it's funny because you look at the word maintenance in a whole new way, because maintenance to me is, when you think about, we have to maintain something, it's like you have to sort of watch over something with regularity to make sure that you're keeping it up to date.
I actually do not have a blog. I have a website, a library website. So that is what I updated. So if you're hearing all this and you're like, I don't have all these social media accounts, I don't have a blog or whatever, it's okay. I actually don't have thousands of followers, but I just keep consistently putting out what I'm doing and student learning and student growth and advocating. And that's just, you just got to keep plugging away at it. And people notice, people are looking. So when you mention the maintenance of the blog or the website or what have you, don't think that nobody's looking at what you're doing, because somebody somewhere is looking at what you're doing and becoming inspired.
Absolutely. And I think about, the maintenance that I do on our library website, and recognize for many people, when they need to get a hold of me, they're going to my library webpage to find out how they can reach out to me. And so it's an important reminder that while I don't consider, when I think about my library's webpage, I don't think of that as social media. It is a very public way to people to see what we do. And while we don't engage with people on it like we would on, Facebook or on Twitter or Instagram or something like that, it is a way for people to reach out to us, and it is a way for us to then return their questions and so forth. I love this idea of appearance as well. You are being evaluated for the appearance of your social media posts. Are they thoughtful? Are they intentional? Even just things like typos. I mean, you need to be aware this is, you are front facing and people are making judgments about you based on what you put out there. You cannot be sloppy.
Yes. And, with Twitter, I think there's a little more grace on Twitter because you have to subscribe to edit, and not everybody does that. But, Instagram, you can edit your posts, TikTok as well. And so your website, of course. And so for me, I've really upped my game with appearance thanks to Canva and Canva for educators. And if you're not, hopefully you're aware, but if not, they do have a free account for educators, and sign up for that. And that's just it makes it so easy for you to create these wonderful looking graphics, whether it's for, a book fair coming up, like Literati, or if you, just have an event coming up, like a spelling bee or something like that.
Do you feel that the award committee that gave out the MVP award draws a distinction with the types of posts you create and their intended audience? Meaning the posts that you create that are really intended to reach and communicate with your families, as opposed to the content which oftentimes, like mine primarily, are reaching an audience of fellow school librarians?
I think it takes a holistic kind of view of your social media posting. So we have posts that are geared towards families, and we have posts that are geared towards librarians. We have posts that are geared towards administrators. But when they sent me the email congratulating me on the win, they made sure to mention that the posts were relevant, but they also, in bold, demonstrated student learning in the library. And I think that's something that everyone wants to see, whether you are a family member, a community member, or a fellow librarian. That's what you want to see. And that was, I think, really a highlight for me to hear that as well. Like, oh, well, then I am doing exactly what I should be doing, which is advocating what the library does, which is help students grow.
Guess I hadn't even thought about it that way. I'd like to hear what you have learned in being more intentional about building your virtual media presence. Could you share with us how this fits into your daily workflow? And, while taking pics of your students while they're in class and while they're in your library space makes a lot of sense, posting them while the students are there may not.
Right. So I tend to do it at the end of the day, in that space between dismissal and going home. And, just every minute is intentional. But yes, we are, even teachers on the campus, they're snapping pics of what kids are doing while they're doing it. But we're not stopping and, disengaging from the kids to post on social media. So I think it's important to, okay, I'm going to have this set time, and I don't do it every day. But when I have something that I want to share, that's normally the time. You'll see a lot of my posts are during my lunchtime or, during the 4 p.m. kind of time when I have the few minutes before I go home.
Well, and I think that everybody has to do something that works for them. But when it comes to multitasking, probably not a good idea with an audience of 30 kids.
No, definitely don't do that. Don't take your eyes off of them, I'm telling you.
Do your kids ask they know you're sharing. Do they say, hey, Mrs. Chacon, take a picture of me, Do they want to be part of your posts?
They do. They love it. Kids, even elementary kids these days, they are on social media and they're going to find you. And so I always keep that in mind with whatever I post. But they know I'm on YouTube, that I'm on Instagram, that I'm on TikTok. And so they're like, am I going to be on your TikTok? Am I going to be on your Instagram? And they get excited about that. And I think that's really cute that they want to be more engaged.
But isn't this a wonderful opportunity, that teachable moment, a little media literacy lesson in the middle, sort of sprinkled throughout what you do? Because we have to model for our students the responsible ways to engage using social media.
Exactly. And it just kind of goes back. I have a Google Classroom as well. And so all the kids in the school are in that. So we got all these voices chiming in. And it is a good little, hey, when we speak to each other, make sure you're aware that we can all see it and that everybody's reading it. Just like when you're on Instagram, just like when you're on TikTok, everybody can see what you say.
Well, and also this idea of, asking permission. Is this something I can share? I know it may sound silly, but even, on a family vacation, being aware that my family members might not all be cool with being a picture being shared on social media. And exercising that courtesy is something that we have to model for our students.
That's so true, is that if I'm not sure if a student has, for instance, a media release to be photographed, then I do kind of maneuver them to where we don't see their faces, directly on. And sometimes they ask why. And so I say, well, here's why. It's because your parents, don't want you to be posted on social media. We're respecting your privacy. And so that is the reason. You're still engaged. You're still a part of our school community. It's just from a different angle. And, they really appreciate hearing that. And some of them are like, but I want to be on. It's like, but here's the thing, is that it's a privacy issue at this point. And not everybody wants to be posted on social media. And so I am cognizant of that as well. When I am taking pictures, if I see that the kids kind of shy away or shrink away, or they just look at me crazy, then I just move on. Because it's not, there's other kids that are happy to be in the pictures, and I don't want to put anybody off from the library just because I want to take a picture.
As with so many things we do, because we teach every kid in the building. On the one hand, we have to know about all the kids' medical needs. You have to know about our kids' allergies. We have to know if we have kids who have special accommodations. But we also have to know what their parents have signed off on when it comes to media. And this is really important. And you're like, yeah, but I've got 500 kids, or I've got 600 kids. And you're like, yep. And if you're going to take pictures, you've got to know which ones have requested that their pictures of the students not be displayed on social.
Yes, that's super important.
So I think everybody would like to know which types of photos, in your experience, have gotten the most engagement from, your families.
Generally, it's always pictures of the kids doing an activity in the library. And it's normally, I would say, my storybook STEM lessons, throwing it back to your episode 207 with STEM in the library. So when I try to take, a mix of pictures and videos so they can see the learning. And if you go through my Twitter account, you'll see this as well. For instance, a storybook STEM where they have to build a wall for Humpty Dumpty and a way for him to get up and down it. I took pictures and videos of the students demonstrating, here is how Humpty goes up the wall and here is how he goes down. And so that going out, that is just like the clearest indication that, for instance, my child is in this particular library learning this thing. I can see evidence of the learning, and administrators love that too as well.
Can I ask, do you share the same thing on all of your social media platforms? When it comes to reaching your parents, what is the best way for you to reach them so that they can see what their kids are doing in the library?
I think this is where someone really has to kind of feel out their demographic, because it's so different. Most of my parents find me on Instagram, but at my other school, it was Twitter. So it just kind of, you got to feel out your audience. I'm getting more and more on TikTok now, more engagement on TikTok. So then I'm going to have to start, switching over. So you say, do I post the same thing? Not always, but I will say I switch it up for TikTok, because there's just so many different things you can do with the videos.
Exactly. Parents are no different from the kids. They like to be seen on social media, especially other people's social media. Do you ever build in opportunities for families to be part of your social media feed that you send out and share when you're broadcasting about your school library program?
Yes. So any kind of extra program you have going on where families are involved, I always ask, can I take your picture and post it? And then most of them say yes. I haven't had any no's. And then I'm able to share out parents engaging in library activities. For instance, we have something called Book Breakfast. I'm thinking about changing the name, but that's where we invite parents onto the campus. I give a little talk about literacy and how to integrate literacy at home. The public library comes out as well, and they're able to sign up for a library card on the spot. And then we provide breakfast, and then I have an array of books for the kids. They get to choose one to keep to build their home library. And then we just literally give them 10 minutes to read together. The kid reads out loud to the parent. And that, it's a billion pictures right there. It's just adorable. And parents love to see that. That's just one example, though. I know libraries across the nation are doing amazing things. And so just use that as an opportunity to kind of advocate for what you're doing. And it could be during school, after school, even your book fair that you have going on. If you have book fair night and parents are there, can I take a picture of you with your purchases?
Something that hadn't occurred to me, but, I'm hoping you'll share how our social media postings translate into our year-end portfolio. How can maintaining a robust social media presence bolster your end-of-year evaluation? And this seems like this is just smart. This is just being smart about all the things that we do throughout the year and then helping it sort of push us across the finish line.
Yes, and I think if you are hesitant about posting on social media, then maybe focus in on this particular point, that we all get evaluated at the end of the year, and we all have to provide evidence or artifacts for what we've done. So what I did, and it's linked in the show notes, is I take my evaluation, I created a Google Doc, and on the left side are all the evaluation points and objectives. For instance, I'm just going to read one out loud to you, that I offer education, training, guidance to students and staff, and the use of locally available technology and information resources. That's just what we do. But okay, yeah, you did it, but what is the evidence that you did it? Well, let me hyperlink you to a post I made on Twitter where it shows what I'm doing, or a document that I made, or a video that I made. So it just makes that end of the year evaluation seamless for your administrator, because it's like all the evidence is right there. They just click on it, it pops up. And I used my Twitter posts a lot for that, because it's like I post, throughout the year what I'm doing, and I keep those objectives in mind as I'm posting. And it's like, this is going to be great evidence to show I'm not, I see you clicked on it. I'm not just checking in Chromebooks and checking out Chromebooks, right? I am also adding on to that by assisting with their technology use and things of that nature. So to me, that's a huge selling point for just keeping your social media updated.
And friends, she's got the domains. This is amazing. For so many of us are using the Charlotte Danielson. You've got domain 1, domain 2, domain 3, and I'm like, oh my gosh, wait. And it's September, friends. This would really be, frustrating if we were trying to do this and it was already April. If you and I had this conversation in April, we'd have to sit on this until the school year started. But here we are, for those of us in the United States, starting our school year. And you, I realize, are a month in. I'm 2 weeks into our school year. But now's a perfect time to sort of create this scaffold on which you sort of keep like a running document. And for me, friends, I just bookmark this underneath on my toolbar, and I just do a little quick drop down. And anytime I feel I can sort of plug in the evidence, that we have done, and done this, it really just makes wrapping up the year so much easier. I'm looking at this, friends, going, oh, this is a game changer. Amanda, really being able to see what you do and knowing that it has clearly worked for you in the past. This would speak to administrators. Anytime we can make their jobs easier, I happen to know for a fact that no administrator enjoys the evaluation process. I truly believe that if they could just enjoy being in their school and not have to have a sort of a critical eye at everything that happens, they would all be much more pleasant at their jobs.
Well, I tell you, this type of document, and this is a perfect time of the year to get it going, and you just plug it in as you go through your things, as you're checking out the Chromebooks, as you're running reports, as you are doing your lessons, and just plug it in. I normally update it once a week, once every 2 weeks, something like that.
Well, and forgive me, but it's never a bad idea to be reminded of the types of things that we are being assessed on, and not just thinking about those at your mid-year evaluation and at your end of the year meeting with your administrator. I think we lose sight of that sometimes, and we get so bogged down by the everyday to realize that there are some bigger goals out there we need to always sort of have on our radar.
And doing something like that, the ongoing evaluation spreadsheet, if you will, it helps me kind of pinpoint where I need to bulk up things or work on things. And so it's like, oh, well, I noticed like this particular objective, I'm struggling to find evidence for it. That means I need to pay some more attention to it. And I think that helps me become a better librarian.
Amanda, I am so grateful that you were able to take time out of your busy Saturday afternoon. I loved meeting your son. He's adorable. And friends, anytime we can learn from one another, we really just, our whole profession benefits. Amanda Chacon, thank you so much for joining us. Please let listeners know how we can find you on social media.
Of course. So I am on Twitter and TikTok, the T's, at The Good Read. And then Instagram is STEMLib. And then I do have a portfolio that I'm going to link, or she's going to link in the show notes as well.
Amanda Chacon, have a fantastic rest of the school year. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing from your listeners on social media.
If you found this episode helpful, please share it out with your team, your PLN, and on social media. Be sure to follow on your favorite podcatcher so you'll never miss an episode. And if you really like listening today, consider leaving some fan mail for Amanda, because I know she'd love to hear from you. One last friendly reminder, use the code UNITED to take advantage of Capstone's generous $20 discount off an order of $100 or more, and librarians who book their very first Literati Book Fair for this upcoming school year and mention the code UNITED when booking may qualify to receive a $500 gift card from Titlewave. Visit the link in today's show notes and call the Literati team to see if you qualify. The topic of our next episode will be Emerging Leaders and my conversation with Brandy Veal, Sibel Garcia-Cole, Sarah Levine, and Brittany Sheretz. I hope you will tune in.